Hi, I'll be discussing Chapter 4, the psychological construction of the self. So, let's go to the introduction. So, first, the philosophers, psychologists, and even ordinary people, we are all interested in one pressing question, which is, who are you? And how do you define who you are? So, sino ka ba talaga? At paano mo ba dinidefine kung sino ka ba talaga or anong pagkatao mo? And there are about 1,000 given definition of self that is found in the book, internet, and even strangers you meet online. But if we're going to base our answer to the traditional philosophical views that we already learned from chapter 1, we might find an answer to the writings of Plato, Kant, and many religious thinkers that the self is an important uh, immortal soul that transcend the physical being. But in psychology, the self refers to a person experienced as a single, unitary, autonomous being separated from the others, and that includes one consciousness of physicality as well as one inner character and emotional life. But how well do we know ourselves? Do we rely on the different roles that are given to us, the relationship that we have, such as being a student, a daughter or a son, a friend or a partner, a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Or would we rather say that our identity is more based on our own thought, emotions, knowledge of the world around you? So, in this chapter, we will focus on the different representation of the self across the discipline and perspective, different psychological theories of development, and the cognitive construction of the selves. And we also have the learning outcomes. First is to explore the different aspect of self and identity, demonstrate critical reflective thought in integrating the various aspect of self and identity, the self identify the different forces and institution that impact the development of various aspects of the self and identity. So let's go to the lesson proper. So can you remember what your childhood dream is? For example, do you remember where you get the idea that you want to be a doctor, engineer, or a beauty queen when you are young? It might be because of your favorite uncle or auntie that you admire from family reunion, but you see our past experiences and early childhood memories and heredity is the extension of us. Normal lang na you have the same urge na gusto mo maging katulad nila. For example, kaya gusto mo maging beauty queen kasi long-legged ang tita mo. And probability ay magkakaroon ka rin ng same characteristics simply because our physical trait is made made of how curly or straight our hair would be, or if you will have long or short legs. These characteristics are passed through generation from the next through genes, and that includes our intelligence, temperament, and personality. Ang iyong IQ, ang iyong mainitin ng ulo, ikaw ba ay short-tempered, di ba? Patient ka ba na tao, lahat yan ay namamana. So another case is the nature or nurture or the debate between genetic factors. First, let us define nature. Nature is parallel to hereditary factors. Your physical appearance, personality characteristics. Physical appearance, kagaya ng sabi natin, your physical trait. Kung magiging kulot ka ba, ikaw ba ay white skin, dark skin, tan skin, yan ay nasa nature mo. Other than that, we have the nurture or the environmental variables that had impact on who we are, including our childhood experiences, how we were raised, our social relationship, and our surrounding culture. For example, mahilig kang mag-hoard ngayon ng mga damit simply because nung kabataan mo or nung hindi ka pa nag-work, ikaw ay deprived sa mga ganong bagay. So, that can fall to your nurture. Pag hindi-deprive ka, syempre gusto mo magkaroon ng ganong bagay pag ikaw ay may kaya na. So, one of the greatest aspect of the self is that is constantly changing. Like the question earlier, think back when you were 5 years old. Do you think you are still the same person now? So perhaps you may agree in some ways that you are still you. Maybe you have the same hobbies or interests that you have followed you through life. However, you probably can consider yourself entirely the same. Because the answer is, as you grow old, so does your sense of self. Kasi hindi naman tayo palaging isip bata. We mature through process and development. So what helps with this development of the self? So psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud and his method of psychoanalysis is one of the most famous personality theories. This theory believed that events from our childhood have great influence on our adult lives that shapes our personality. Included in this theory is the level of mental life, which is consists of the pre-conscious, sorry, conscious, pre-conscious, and conscious. So first, let's go to the conscious. So the conscious contains all those drives, urges, and instincts that are beyond our awareness, but that nevertheless motivate most of our words, feeling, and action. So included dito yung mga memories of childhood abuse, hatred on family members, di ba? Repressed siya, pero isa yun sa mga nagmo-motivate sa atin. Nagmo-motivate ng action natin, ng mga sinasabi natin tungkol sa ibang tao, ng feelings natin, nararamdaman natin sa ibang tao, and also your action. So also, we have the pre-conscious. So the level of the mind that contains all those elements that are not conscious but can become conscious quite readily or with some difficulty. For example, password ng phone mo or ng ATM. 'Di ba? Pag bubuklatin mo lang yung phone mo, tsaka mo lang siya maaalala. Pero yung memory ay ready na. Also, ganun din sa ATM. Hindi mo naman siya palaging iniisip, 'di ba? Pero pag inisip mo siya, nandyan agad siya. So that is your pre-conscious. Conscious or consciousness, which plays a relatively minor role in psychoanalytic theory, can be defined as those mental elements in awareness at any given point in time. Also, Freud divided the mind into three provinces. So we have the id, ego, and superego. So id are also known as pleasure principles. So this includes the biological drives and need. So by pleasure means that id seek instant gratification for our wants and needs. Na pag hindi mo nasunod or pag hindi nakuha ni id yung gusto niya at yung kailangan niya, a person or that person can become tense, anxious, or angry. For example, a hungry baby cried until he was fed. Next would be the ego or the reality principle. So we can say that it is in contact with the real world and in service of the reality or the outside world. And as the ego deals with reality, nagtatry pa rin siyang i-balance kung anong desire ng id, pero ginagawa niya yon in a socially accepted manner. For example, Mary really wanted to borrow her mother necklace, but knowing her mother na magagalit siya pag kinuha niya without permission, ang gagawin niya ay magpapaalam siya. So kahit gustong-gusto niya kunin kahit walang paalam, magpapaalam si Mary, that is the socially accepted ng society. When we talk about the superego, the conscience-driven, this consists of the values and norms of the society that is internalized by the individual. So the superego develops last and is based on moral and judgment about right and wrong. Moving forward, we have the psychoanalytic theory is strongly determinist as it views our behavior and as caused entirely by unconscious factor over which we have no control. So desires repressed during the first few years of life are buried in the unconscious mind where they can cause trouble throughout a person's life. Moving forward, we have the social cognitive theory. This is a learning theory developed by renowned Stanford psychology professor Albert Bandura. So this theory provides a framework for understanding how people are constantly shaped and is shaped by their environment. So, in particular, this theory explained the process of observational learning, modeling, and the influence of self efficacy on the production of behavior. So, it also takes the chance encounters and fortuitous events seriously. Pero while we are recognizing that these meetings and events ay wala namang constant effect on one's life, pero how we react on this event ang mas powerful. So this theory has also several basic assumptions. So first is the outstanding characteristic of humans is plasticity. That is, humans have the flexibility to learn a variety of behaviors, to learn a variety of behavior, ayan, behavior in diverse situations. So this is that people can do and learn through direct experience, but with great emphasis that we can also learn through observing others. So we can say that we can adapt, change, or bend in just by observing others. Kumbaga, we camouflage kung anong kailangan ng environment. Second is through a triadic reciprocal causation model that includes a behavioral, environment, and personal factors. So people have the capacity to regulate their lives. The two important environmental forces in triadic model are the chance encounter and the fortuitous event that we will explain later. Pero let's give example when it comes to triadic reciprocal causation. Alin ba yung behavioral, alin ba yung environment, at alin ba yung personal factors. So personal factors, for example, is you may be drawn to become a teacher. Simply because you love children, you are patient with them, and you have a great interpersonal skills. So that is your personal factors. And after finishing your undergraduate studies, you really became a teacher. So while you are teaching, you are enjoying it. You're investing time in creating your lesson plans, and you even buy candy as a reward for your students' effort. So that is your behavior. And since your class is performing really well, you are showered with praises from the teachers and parents. And that is your environmental factors. And that affect your personality or your characteristic. So third is a social cognitive theory. Takes an agentic perspective, meaning that humans have the capacity to exercise control over the nature and the quality of their lives. People are the producers as well as the product of the social system. So another important part of the triadic reciprocal causation model is the self-efficacy, which means that it is the uh, people performance na nagagawa natin or kaya nating magpalabas ng desired outcome or desired behavior out of that particular situation. And in addition to self-efficacy, we have the proxy agency and the collective efficacy na nagpipredict din ng performance. Proxy agency is when people rely on others for goods and services, whereas collective efficacy refers when people share belief that they can bring about change. For example ng proxy agency, di ba proxy, di ba pag sa kasal, pag hindi ka naka-attend, meron kang proxy. Meron din dito sa proxy agency. For example, if I give a power of attorney to someone, her signature on a certain documents on my behalf can account as my closing end. Hindi ko na kailangan pumirma pa kasi I already gave her the power. Meron akong makukuha sa kanya. Siya yung attend ng meeting ko, siya na yung magsasign ng lahat ng mga documents kung kailangan, di ba? That is the proxy agency. Whereas, collective efficacy naman, for example, it involves resident monitoring children playing in public areas para maiwasan ang bullying or kidnapping. Feeling nila sa ganito, nagkakaroon ng pagbabago. and also confronting individuals who exploit or disturb public spaces. Fourth, people regulate their conduct through both external factors. External factors include people's physical and social environments, whereas internal factors include self-observation, judgmental process, and self-reaction. Fifth is when people find themselves in morally ambiguous situation. They typically attempt to regulate their behavior through moral agency, which include redefining the behavior or distorting the consequences of their behavior or dehumanizing or blaming the victim of their behavior and displacing or diffusing responsibility for their action. Example, terrorists see their behavior as act of selfless martyrdom. Although people can do and exercise a significant amount of control over their life, they cannot predict or anticipate all the possible environmental changes. So Bandura is the only personality tourist to seriously consider the importance of this chance encounter and fortuitous event. And Bandura defined chance encounter as unintended meeting of a person unfamiliar to each other. And fortuitous event naman ay environmental experience that is unexpected and unintended. And in addition, we also have human agency that refers to human capability to influence one functioning and the course of event by one action. So sabi natin, people are self-organizing. We are proactive. We are self-regulating and self-reflecting. They are not simply onlookers of their behavior. We are actively doing something about our life. And they are the contributors to their life circumstances, not just product of them. And there are four core properties of human agency. First is the intentionality. People form intention that include action plans and strategies for realizing them. Intentions include planning, but it also involve action. So, paano mo gagawin yung pinaplano mo? Ano yung mga first steps mo na kailangan mong gawin? Other than that, we have the forethought. So people set themselves goals and foresee likely outcomes of the prospective actions to guide and motivate their efforts anticipatorily. So people that possesses forethought set goals to anticipate likely outcome of their action and to select behaviors that will produce desired outcomes and avoid undesirable ones. Kaya nga 'di ba, when we plan, laging may plan A, B, up to Z. And for example, one of your goal ay magising ng maaga, like 6 a.m. Ano dapat mong gawin? 'Di ba? Huwag kang matulog ng 12 midnight pataas. Kailangan before 10 or 11, you were asleep na. So, paano mo gagawin? You limit your consumption of Netflix. Kasi kaya ka napupuyat kasi nagde-Netflix ka. Not all, but some. So also, we have the self-reactiveness. So agents are not only planners and forethinkers, they are also self-regulator or the process of motivating their own actions. And since we regulate our action, goals must be specific within our ability to achieve that and reflect to our potential accomplishment na not too far in the future. Kailangan specific yung goal mo. Kailangan time-bound. Diba? Yung mga smart, kumbaga. Manageable. Kailangan ganun. Yung mga ginagawa nating goal. Also, self-reactiveness. People are not only agents. They are the examiners of their own functioning. So reflective that in the end of the day, we can fully assess what we had learned from the mistakes and lesson of the day that had passed. So we are the examiners of our own functioning. We can evaluate the effect that other people action have on us. So through this awareness, we can reflect our own personal efficacy, the soundness of our thoughts and action, the meaning of our pursuit, and we can make corrective adjustment if necessary. Also, we have psychologist and philosopher William James. So he concentrated on the nature of the self and its effect on emotional aspect. So he explained me as the material, social, and spiritual components of the self. Further, he emphasized that the self can be viewed as an object of thought or as the subject of the thought. So the empirical self or me, while the other is the pure ego or I. So the me can be thought of as a separate object or individual that a person refers to when describing their personal experiences. So sabi natin, empirical self includes daw the material self, compromises of your one body, your clothing, and immediate family and home. Kasi sabi natin, describing their personal experiences or the extension of themselves. Kaya kasama yung pananamit mo, your family, di ba, how you describe your family, and also your home. So the social self or the insignificant interpersonal relationship includes your friends and social status. And the spiritual self, one's personality, character, and defining value. While the pure ego or the I is identifiable with the soul of traditional concept, that it cannot be an object of science and should not be assumed to be a substance. So to simplify, I is the self that knows who they are and what they have done in their life. Moving forward, we have humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers, who agreed with the main assumption of Abraham Maslow, or the proponent of the hierarchy of needs. So he added that for a person to grow, they need an environment that provide them with genuineness, acceptance, and empathy. Without this, relationship and healthy personalities will not develop as they should. Much like a tree will not grow without sunlight and water. Just like a puzzle, it cannot be considered finished until all the pieces fits. So Rogers believed that every person could achieve their goals, wishes, and desire in life when or rather if they did, self-actualization took place. So pag na-achieve mo na daw yung tatlong bagay na yon, magkakaroon ka na ng self-actualization. At yun yung pinaka-peak ng theory ni Rogers. So Donald Winnicott is English psychoanalyst and child psychiatrist, introduced the psychological theory of true and the false self. So true self is represented by our real feelings and desire, while the false self is a side of us that has changed its behavior, repressed feelings, and pushed needs aside in order to survive. So we introduced the idea of the onion. Sabi sa onion, di ba, madami siyang layers. At yung pinaka-core daw, yung core ng onion, yun daw yung true self mo. At yung mga balat, yung outer layer, yun daw yung false self mo na pinoprotektahan ang true self mo. So sabi dyan, Winnicott says that everyone wears social mask or false self. So the false self is described as one which allows someone to be functional in the society. So it enables politeness and social courtesy even when we may not feel like it. So ginagawa pa rin natin yung sa tingin nating safe tayo para kahit hindi natin talaga feel yun, pinagpapakita tayo ng fake emotion, kumbaga. So there are times in our day-to-day lives when it would be harmful for us to let our true self dominate. So for instance, we don't bear our deepest feelings and thought while at work. So that kind of vulnerability would not only demonstrate lack of boundaries, but would also open up to a potential attack from others who might not treat our feelings with acceptance. For example, hindi ka pwedeng mainis sa mga utos ng nanay mo kasi hindi ka niya papayagang umalis ng bahay. So by that, your true self is hidden and you're being protected by your false self not to rebel against these orders. So along with this topic, we also have the individualism and collectivism. So from the word itself, individual and collective. So, individualism stresses individual goals and the right of the individual person. Collectivism focus on a group goal, what is best for the collective group and personal relationship. So, individualist is motivated by a personal reward and benefit. Sa'yo lang yung reward and benefit. Ikaw lang. Kasi ikaw lang yung individual. This is about you and you alone. While the collectivist is motivated by a group goal. Long-term relationships are very important. Collectivist persons easily sacrifice individual benefit or praise to recognize and honor the team success. So while collectivist is about while individual what collectivist is about your group success, even if you do all the work, it's all about the group. So that ends my chapter 4. So so in the end, this story may help you gain a little or more knowledge about yourself. And just like everything that comes in life, it takes time. And as we end this chapter, what story interests you the most?